Right, so I think that's recording. And that too. So, whenever you're ready, Paul, off you go.
So, how did you find out about Crossroads Care initially?
The problem is, as far as I was concerned, my mum was diagnosed with dementia. I felt as though that was it. We were on our own, and then suddenly, out of the sort of the blue, came people who obviously I didn't know, and this was like working day to day, seat of your pants, confused, and these people kept popping up and saying Crossroads Care, Crossroads Care. You know, what about this? What about that? And suddenly, a whole gambit of information came together through people, and that was the sort of the key really to get involved in, as far as I was concerned, dementia training, because I didn't want to sort of see my mum as a. I think what happened was that people look at dementia as a condition, and they treat the condition, and they forget about the person. And I wanted my mum to be my mum, and I wanted to help as much as I can now. Crossroads have been brilliant in that they've actually brought so many different expertise to the table that it's made my life much easier, and my mum is much more happier.
And how did you hear about the training?
It was important for me to get some kind of training. I didn't know what, and it came through Paul Nichols, and that came through the concept of just checking. The social worker advised us to get some checking facilities into the house to see my mum's movements, because she was leaving the house and she was walking down the street in the middle of the night. And once Paul had sort of set that up for me, which was fantastic, we actually could understand what my mum was doing and then relate sort of treatment towards that. Paul said, have you ever thought about going on a caring course? I said, well, I didn't know there was one. So Paul then put my name down for the Crossroads caring course, and that was great, because it's really sort of stimulated me to find out more and more about dementia and related sort of situations. And I've been picking up things from my education now, which 35 years of teaching, I've actually that I can put into that, and it's brought everything now into focus, and I can see myself helping my mum in a better way than I was before, from a confused state to a much more sort of clear state.
And does anything from the course in particular stand out for you?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, the people were brilliant, and the carers that took the course, that presented the course, were fantastic, and they made it really sort of informal and really comfortable for everybody. And the first thing that I noticed was that everybody went there with the problem, and there were 6 to 8 of us, and everybody had their individual problems, but all I could see was we need to look at this from a sort of a collective problem rather than an individual problem. It was, I can't do this, I can't do that, but it was, okay, what tools can we get out of this to actually sort of to help your life better as a carer, as a person, and therefore help your caree, if you like. And from that perspective, I've started to think more and more about things that I've done in my lifetime, which are helping now, which is helping my mother, and hopefully we can go on from there. So instead of looking at the condition and the sort of the individual situation, my wife can't do this or my mother can't do that, it's basically looking at objectives and aims and how we can actually bring that about and help lots of people. And there seems to me to be something that we can do as carers, volunteers, that we could go back to the council and we could say, look, we could do this together. We could set this up. There are so many things that we could do. To me, I mean, if you go back to education, take my mum's situation. two things that came out of teaching for me was that the actual experience of children and also the language of children. Now, if you can get those two things through Borgia and Bernstein, if you can get those two things in education, surely they can be adapted to this situation. And as far as my mum's concerned, she needs to have experiences. You know, she is still a beautiful person. She needs to have experiences, but you also need to continue with her language. If you stop doing that, if they're there watching the telly all day or they're just in the house, they're going to go downhill very, very fast. But at the moment now, we're actually taking mum out, we're having fun, and she's responding to that. It's fantastic.
But it seems to me that not only has the training had a positive effect on your own health and well-being, it seems to have had a positive effect on the relationship with your mother.
Well, we've actually through the course, we've now sort of adapted the sort of situation, and it's full of humour, it's full of fun, and my mum is laughing all the time. We're laughing all the time. We're telling jokes. We're taking her out. We're reading to her. She's now starting to read on her own, which was unbelievable. And when I went up yesterday, which was sort of Monday, I found that she'd started to read an old book that she'd had many, many years ago. So it's starting to bear fruit. And this six-week course is now opening the doorway for my mother and for me. So my health is much better. I was going to the situation where I think I was heading towards depression at one point, but with Crossroads Care, with the help that I'm getting from all different sort of facets of Crossroads Care, I feel a lot more comfortable. I can do more things for me as self, but also my mum is now sort of improving undeniably. You can see a fantastic improvement from her condition from maybe 6 months ago into today, and that has all come through the care and all the sort of the tools that we've been given at the course to help us do that.
And how do you find the other services that you have from Crossroads Care?
Excellent.
You have some respite care and...
Brilliant. I mean, there's been situations where we've needed to get hold of respite care, and they've basically responded very, very positively and very quickly. That's really helped us. There was a situation when we were going on holiday and they stepped in for a week. There was also a situation where, because I was ill and I was in hospital, I couldn't get to do any of my mum's shopping, so every week they would come up and do all my mum's shopping. So again, I could go into hospital feeling comfortable, rather than stressing out on thinking my mum's not going to get any help this week or next week. So Crossroads Care has been absolutely fantastic right across the board. I can't sort of criticise it in any way, shape or form.
Not living in Coventry yourself, but your mum lives in Coventry, I know. How do you feel about some of the services that you get from Coventry that are not available in places like Nuneaton, Atherstone?
Difficult to answer that question. All I can say is that from an interloper, if you like, coming from Nuneaton every day, the services and the experiences that I've received from Coventry has been first class. It's been excellent. I have had very little need to look at Nuneaton at the moment and to actually see what's going on in Nuneaton, and that may be my fault. I should look for what they offer. But all I can say is that Coventry's response to my mother and to other people, listening to the other people on the course, they were feeling that the response from Crossroads Care, from Coventry Care, was absolutely immense, and it was obviously making their lives a lot better. I think the one thing that I want to do, because I think a lot of this is to do with one's own education. I want to find out a lot more about dementia. And your situation, when you presented everything about the brain, I found that fascinating, and that really opened up a hell of a lot of opportunities that I thought we could actually sort of look at, and we could try and, we could go down that road. And as far as I'm concerned, that's where I want to go now. I want to learn a hell of a lot more about how the brain works, how dementia attacks the brain, how it sort of sits there and then suddenly, boom, you haven't got a mum anymore, or that your mum is different. So that was fantastic for me, and that's where I want to go now. But I also feel like collectively we could do a lot. The 6 or 8 people I want to get together, and I want to start a self-help group with those people. I've been very busy over the last 3 weeks since the course finished, and I've been in hospital, back and forth hospital again. But hopefully after half term, which is a couple of weeks away, I want to sort of get them together, and I want to sort of continue this, because their stories, their case studies are as important as my mum's.
What Paul was saying about the available in Coventry thing, that comes down to local authorities and where the funding comes from. So for example, the carer training is only available in the Coventry area because that's all it's funded for. Yeah. So you're quite fortunate in that your mother lives in the Coventry area, because had she lived down the road from you in Guy Common, she wouldn't be able to access that service in the same way. So I think it's a case of, do you think that these sort of services should be available for all carers, not just people with dementia, but anyone caring for a friend or a family
throughout
member?
The country, really?
I think Coventry has been fantastic for me, and talking to the other carers, it's been fantastic for them. I said to you previously that I was very confused. Now I'm not so confused. I can see I can see light at the end of the tunnel. Mum and I are enjoying our relationship again, and that was very difficult 6 to 8 months ago. And now we're having a ball. Even though she's very poorly, we are absolutely having a ball. She's fun, she is laughing, she's really, really happy. So from that, I can say it's all in total come from Coventry Care. If that could be sort of rolled out throughout the country, then people in my position would be in a position to say thank you. It's made my life a lot easier. Dementia, I think is a condition that, okay, elderly people suffer. The carers are also going through it, and it has to be a team approach. And if care can be sort of rolled out throughout the West Midlands, throughout Warwickshire, throughout the country, then people like me are going to benefit. And from that, I can only say that our relationship with our carees, the people with dementia, our mothers, our wives, our husbands, that relationship will benefit too.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I think that, as I've said, this whole experience has been frightening. It was like going into a black hole. I didn't know where I was going. And one of the things that I've learnt, silly really, but you sort of learn again, is that you are important and your health is important. And the Crossroads care package, all the different aspects of Coventry care, West Midlands care, has helped me to understand a condition which I didn't have a clue about. Now I'm not so confused. My health's better, my mum's health's better, our relationship's better, and all I can say for certain is that if that micro sort of case study can be translated throughout the country, then the whole sort of national care sort of situation will benefit.
Alan Treharne, thank you for talking to Crossroads Care.
Yeah, that's we've got a lot of really, really good stuff there, I think, that we can actually use. I don't know if there's anything else. Obviously we can leave it going, but can I just have a quick look through the questions?
I was trying to look through them as Alan was speaking, and I look at something, I think, well, he just covered that admirably, It's like,
I tend to sort of waffle on, don't I? Really?
No. I was looking at that important in sort of small snippets. It would be absolutely. Yeah, I think there's loads of things. I mean, you covered some of the questions without you seeming to ask them.
Yeah, I'm trying. I didn't look at the time when we started.
Yeah. No, that's
Is
the
it?
thing. Yeah, don't.
I'm not going to move it.
Yeah.
15 minutes and 6 seconds.
Yeah.
It was a bit like hard talk.
Yeah.
Jeremy Paxson, eat your heart.
It's just, I mean, obviously what we're trying to get across to people is services aren't necessarily standardised across the country, which is a shame. I mean, we've got the emergency service as well in Coventry. Coventry is a fantastic area to live in with respect to looking after someone. Because there's all this funding that's put towards it, and our Crossroads care is one of the biggest in the country, and we've got a very diverse range of things. But I mean, it's a shame that a lot of the services aren't standardised across the country, because even across one local authority that we work across, we can't offer the same services to the same people, and it's just it's.
This is why I want to get into. I spoke to Suzanne Laurie yesterday. I want to get into the sort of the forums, because I want to learn about what the hospitals are doing with dementia. I want to learn about how sort of people with special needs are coping. Because
you're going to come on our dementia course, I know, and I won't preempt anything, but the problem with, particularly outside, take Walsgrave Hospital for example, if you go outside of the Caledon Centre into the general hospital,
yeah.
Obviously people with dementia get admitted to hospital with totally unrelated illnesses. But the problem in that section of the hospital is that when you've done your 5-week course, I suggest to you that you will know more about dementia and the effects it has on different people, on the person themselves, the carers, the nurses, and how they should be treated. You'll know more about that than most of the nurses in Walsgrave Hospital. And that's a problem.
It's not just, I mean, this is something we find across the board. I mean, it started off with our care support staff have this level of training, but the people that are with them 24/7, the people with any of these support needs, don't have the training. Why do these people not have the training?
Yeah.
Surely the people that are with them all the time, there should be something available for them to teach them how to deal with this obviously uncomfortable and difficult situation, as well as the staff that are going into them. But I mean, you'll find that it's the same with other professionals. I mean, they're not, their day-to-day business isn't dealing with these people. They may come across them. I mean, there's a number of cases of police mistreating people who have dementia. I mean, someone relatively recently got tasered because they were panicking and they didn't understand the situation, so they're sort of acting out. And rather than letting their carer calm them down and do whatever they needed to do, the police just handcuffed, tasered, and bunged them in back of a van and essentially arrested them for having a mental health problem, which is something that's obviously massively inappropriate, and had they had trained, that wouldn't have happened. And nurses can't cope with people that have dementia. They don't understand the situation. They argue with them when they should be going along with them and getting into their world and understanding them, but they don't do that. There's conflict instead of understanding.
I think one of the things that sort of the course has given me the opportunity to do is explore the ways in the way to talk to these people. My approach to my mum now is a lot different to what it was 6 months ago, and you see her as a person, whereas before perhaps I lost that a little bit. It was, oh, she's got dementia and what have you. Now it's, you change the sort of the terminology and the wording of questions, and right, Mum, I think we need to do this today. No, we need to do this today, rather than giving them the opportunity to say, oh no, I can't do it. And there's been opportunities in the last sort of 3 or 4 weeks where, I've said to her, look, we're going out for a walk. Oh no, it's too cold. I said, look, we're going out for a walk because it'll make you better. Will it? Right, let's go. And it's giving them the sort of the alternatives, giving them something to think about, which then sort of changes the whole dimension and the whole dynamic of the relationship, which is great. But I agree with what you're saying, because I was coming home from Henley College 30 odd years ago, and I ended up in hospital. Why? I don't know. My face was all cut to shreds, and I don't know why. And all I can remember was the nurse on my way out saying, "You better stop drinking, young man." And I thought, when did I have a drink? I don't know, you know. And it wasn't until about 3 or 4 months later that I was diagnosed with epilepsy. And it was an epileptic fit. Nobody said.
No understanding there.
No understanding.
So they assumed the
And
situation
they
was...
just assumed that I had a few beers. And
You
I was
never hear
drunk.
about cases of people in hospital that have dementia and, you know, nurses just plonk the medication at the side of the bed and expect them to have taken it. And when they come back, there's no medication there, so they just assume they've taken it. You know, it's on the floor and it's going to be swept up tomorrow, leaving water and fluids next to them.
Yeah.
And some of these
Expecting
people
them to just take it and drink it, you
support
know.
these sort of things, or a little bit of progress. It's like, oh, aren't you going to have your cup of tea or something along these lines?
I think I've been lucky because I've gone into education, you know, with one thought in mind, and that's the kids. Everything was done for the kids, and I love them to bits. And I'm now sort of seeing this in exactly the same way. And I think it's a sort of a person-centred thing rather than a sort of a medical-centred thing or a condition-centred thing. I think it's, we've got to look at this as and see how we can talk to the people and help these people, because they're gosh, I mean, it must be a difficult life for them.
Confusing.
Very.
So I say to carers, the people with dementia, that, you know, at the end of the day, you know, it's an incurable disease. It's a progressive disease, and the only way that a carer is going to be able to communicate effectively is to transfer yourself into wherever it is your mum is or your dad is at the moment, because that is a possibility if you think about it. The impossibility is for your mum or your dad or whoever to come back into your world. You've got to go that way.
I think one of the things that really sort of opened everything up for me was when Chris said something like, "Well, your mum would have been experiencing life when she was perhaps 30." And she asked me her age, and I said it was 87. That was 57 years ago. So she's doing things when she was now, and she thinks it was when she was 30. And the more and more this happens,
because that's the age, the only age she can relate to,
yeah.
perhaps.
Yeah, and the more and more this happens, the more and more you can understand it. Gosh, there is a book waiting to be written here, isn't there?
There's many books been written.
Well,
Yeah.
do you think that you realise now that more the importance of looking after yourself though as a carer? Obviously, there are a lot of people out there that put all of their focus on looking after the person they're looking, with the care needs. Do you think it's sort of changed the perspective and it's like, I need to look after myself a little more for your own well-being, your own health, so that you can continue to look after them as best as possible, look after yourself, and so that you're not in fact going to get into some trouble before them? Do you think that that's...
There was, funny, I was thinking about this morning. There was a sort of a pride with me when I got epilepsy. I was going out with a girl and I couldn't tell this girl that I had epilepsy, and we split up. And it's like this. It's like your mates now telling your mates that your mum's got dementia, or telling people that your mum's got dementia. And I think a lot of people try to keep it within the four walls. And this definitely became apparent during the course. There were people who were scared of actually explaining to people that their wives, their husbands, their mothers, their fathers had a condition, dementia or whatever. And my argument is that the more people that know, the better it is for you and the better it is for your health. Because once they get to understand that, they can come into it, they can sort of, if there is a need to come in, whether it's neighbours next door or whether it's friends or family. And the nice thing is that our family now, my daughter, my son, his girlfriend, my wife's parents, they all know about my mum, and they're all helping. And it's helping me. And my well-being is improving because of that reason. And I think it's, pride goes out the window, and you've just got to be sensible about the whole thing. And I think the more and more people understand these things, whether it's epilepsy or dementia or what have you, mental disease in general, the better off we are, because at the end of the day, we're the people that have to volunteer and look after them, and you can only do that when you're in a physical and mental state to do it properly. And Crossroads has helped me to understand that, and with Crossroads help, and with families' help, and friends' help, my sort of well-being is improved 100%. So yes, it's very important. Excellent support.
Fantastic. Well, I think we can stop filming there. I think that's absolutely great. I think that's really good.
I think just one point. I think the carers course that I went through, 6 weeks as it was, is a must for everybody. And I don't mean a must for everybody in Coventry. I mean a must for everybody throughout the country. Because it's basically created a confused state of mind, the disappearance of a confused state of mind, to a sort of a working relationship with my mum now, which is very funny and very happy. So thank you.
Thanks very much. That's great. Oh, see, this is why I love coming along and actually speaking to people, because often I'm in the office. I do go out and do sort of promotional events and speak to people when we're out and about.